Hi there, Sandy here. Welcome to another Friday Findings video at keepsakecrafts.net. I have shown you in a previous video how to make a mold, a one-sided mold, using molding putty to mold an object like a button or a charm to get an impression or texture. But in today's video, I'm going to show you how to make a two-part mold. So a two-part mold begins the same way that you make a one-part mold. You take your object, you mix together your two colors of molding putty, and then you press your object in and make your impression. There's a couple of differences though. First of all, you want to kind of have in mind what you want to be each side of your mold, because there will often be a line between the two molds. And the other thing is that you want to make registration marks, and that's what these toothpicks are for. Before the molding putty has set up, you want to take just the little pieces of toothpicks, work perfectly, to make at least 3 registration marks. And this will help to make the two halves of your mold fit together perfectly. So once the first half of your mold is set, and you can always tell that the first half is set by pressing a fingernail in, and it won't make any impression. And you pull out your toothpicks because we won't need those anymore. What's going to happen is that the putty for the second half of the mold will fit into these spaces and then make them match perfectly. Now, I've covered molding putty in quite a bit of detail in a previous video. It's just 2 parts that you mix together, and depending on the brand, you have a few minutes once they are mixed together before they start to set up. So before we start mixing, what we want to do is apply a release to the mold so that the 2 pieces will not stick together. And a good one is petroleum jelly, or also known as Vaseline. And I just have here a little Q-tip. Now I'm going to make sure and get a good glob, that's a technical term, into each of those holes, and then just a thin layer. You don't need a lot, just a thin layer on all of the other edges where the putty is going to touch the putty. You don't need to put any down into where the shell is. Just want to make sure you get it in those registration holes, and then along any of the edges that will be meeting. So I pulled my shell out because I had a little bit of an undercut here. That may cause me problems later, we'll see. I think it'll be fine. It's not real steep. So now the next thing is to take your next portions of molding putty, and the only rules are that they need to be equal in size. And you're just going to start mixing them together until you no longer see streaks of the colors, but it's all one uniform color. And that looks pretty uniform. I'm going to roll it into a smooth ball. And because I have this inner part of the shell that I want to fill in, I'm going to actually flatten out this bit so that I can press it right in there. Just the same way if you were making a mold of a face, you would make a point to fill the nose. So I'm going to press that, and then just kind of keeping in mind where those registration marks are, make sure and press firmly in those spots so that your molding putty goes into those registration marks. And you don't want to go all the way down around the edges, but just press it down firmly. Make sure, of course, that none of your object is exposed, so I don't see any of my shell. And now you just set it aside to cure, which is anywhere from 5 minutes to half an hour. It depends on the brand. So here's my piece, and we can check to make sure that that's cured by pressing a fingernail in and it doesn't leave a dent at all. And now the 2 pieces, because we put the release in between them, should come apart easily, and so they do. And I just have a paper towel here to go ahead and just clean off that Vaseline. Well, that's going to be an interesting one to mold. We'll see how that works with that very deep undercut. We'll have to make sure and really shove clay into there. Now sometimes there's a bit of excess mold around the edges, and I'll just take a pair of scissors and trim it off. Sometimes it's in the way. This one doesn't really have much that's in the way. but sometimes it's just good to get it out of your way. And then you want to have a piece of really well-conditioned clay for making your mold. You want it nice and pliable and soft, so be sure to take your time and work it well before you try making a mold of it. Otherwise your mold's not going to come out nice and smooth. If you like this video, be sure to give a thumbs up, share, and subscribe if you want to see more. I upload new tutorials every Tuesday and Friday. So once you have your clay nice and conditioned, you want to first roll it into a smooth ball, because you don't want any creases. Any creases that are in the ball are going to show in your finished piece. And then just kind of roll it roughly to the same size as the piece that you're molding. And then here where I have this deep undercut, I'm actually going to pinch out a little bit of clay, and then I'm just going to stuff it in there. And I'm really going to stuff it in this space pretty hard. And I think I may have a little bit more clay than I need, but we can remedy that. And then I'm going to check my registration marks. Like that. There. And then meet the two pieces together and just press really hard, holding the two in between your two hands and really giving a good squash. And now you can see where there's excess clay, and so you want to take your blade and just go ahead and trim that away. And then after you've done that, you want to roll the clay into a ball again. This way you know you're starting with nearly the exact right amount of clay. And then repeat, rolling into a ball and into a shape and pressing into the mold. Now if you've benefited from my videos, consider becoming a patron. You can support this channel with $1 a month or whatever you can afford. Check out my Patreon page for details. So once again, I'm just going to pull out that flap to kind of stuff in that space. Once again, check the registration marks, put them together, and squeeze really well. There's still a little excess clay. And let's see what we've got. Oh, that's pretty cool. Now because this is clay, of course, you can continue to manipulate it. You can smooth out any rough edges. You can continue to sculpt it and change the shape to suit your fancy once you've taken it out of the mold. But there you could see we have our shell, even with that interior space, pretty well replicated. And that is how you make a two-part mold. So if you're interested in the supplies I use, there's a link in the upper right and in the description box to go to my blog post. And don't forget to subscribe if you haven't already, and check out my Patreon page to help support these videos. Thanks for watching. Happy creating. Bye-bye.